China had come to a very dangerous belief that they had a right to challenge the decisions of the government. Reporters were demanding the right to tell the truth and to report truthfully on the news. What was next? Freedom? Democracy? Workers and peasants demanding their rights? The possibilities were horrifying. Deng, Yang, and Li Peng felt the people of China needed to be taught a painful lesson, to fear their leaders and to obey. Senior leader Deng Xiaoping was chairman of the military commission and the most powerful man in China. Around May 8th, he began meeting with China's top generals to drum up support for martial law and a military attack on the students and their supporters. To his dismay, Deng discovered that many generals and commanders were not willing to use the People's Liberation Army to attack the Chinese people. The students were also expressing their dismay at the unwillingness of the government to open a dialogue or to retract the April 26 editorial which labeled them terrorists and counter-revolutionaries. As Deng met with his military commanders to plot strategy to use force, the students came up with their own strategy to force the government to take their demands seriously. Student leaders felt they needed to do something dramatic. Some students proposed setting themselves on fire. Instead, they would stage a hunger strike. A concern with food was a central part of Chinese daily life. Tens of millions of Chinese had starved to death during Mao's Great Leap Forward, and food rationing was still part of normal Chinese life. Chinese often greeted each other by asking, "Have you eaten yet?" The hunger strike announced on May 12th captured the attention of the entire nation. Initially, 500 students pledged to take part, donning headbands, identifying them as hunger strikers, some even tying cloth over their mouths to symbolize their refusal to eat. Within days, the hunger strikers numbered in the thousands. Students began to chant, "If we do not speak, who will speak? If we do not act, who will act? If we do not struggle, who will struggle? If we do not fight, who will fight? Our country, our society." Others shouted slogans, "I need food, but I'd rather die without democracy." Compared with people from the West, Chinese people are not as well fed and are quite thin by comparison. Lacking sufficient body fat, students started fainting from hunger the very first day, and the drama of the starving students as they were taken away by ambulance was broadcast live on TV. All across China, the plight of the hunger strikers captured the attention of the young and the old, professionals and peasants, students and workers. People worried about the plight of the students who were willing to starve to death because they so loved their country and their cause. The hunger strike was a brilliant stroke, and they had planned the hunger strike perfectly. Mikhail Gorbachev, the leader of the Soviet Union and the champion of freedom, of glasnost, who was a hero to much of the Western world, was scheduled to visit China in 2 days, and all the world's press would be in Beijing and Tiananmen Square to cover the momentous occasion. Now, thanks to the hunger strikers, the focus of the world would be on the student democracy movement. On Monday, May 15th, the government ordered that Tiananmen Square be cleared as it was to be the official site for the welcoming ceremony for Gorbachev. Instead, the people of Beijing again defied the government, and over 150,000 people crowded the square in support of the students and democracy. Across China, men, women, children, and the aged watched and worried over the health of the students, fearing they would die. The communist leadership was receiving reports of demonstrations in every province in over 145 major Chinese cities in support of the students. The people of China were turning against the government and siding with the students and their demands for free speech, a free press, and democracy. Many reformers were worried. Fearing the government would crush the democracy movement, reformers and renowned intellectuals journeyed to Tiananmen Square, making speeches urging the demonstrators to clear a path for Gorbachev. Some of the student leaders also felt they should clear the square as a sign of their patriotism and love of country.
可是我们要是丢掉爱国这一点上，我觉得我们很难在这一点上做出取得实质性进展。我们如果在这一点上做出一个姿态，我们不是退，我们是挪一下，绝不是挪一下。另外，开心，我现在恳求大家以大局为重。
However, most of the students and their supporters felt that the government must first make some concession or agree to meet. Otherwise, to abandon the square and the hunger fast would be viewed as a major defeat. Gorbachev was forced to enter and exit the Great Hall of the People through a side entrance. Li Peng and the right wing of the Communist Party feared and resented everything that Gorbachev stood for. By contrast, Zhao embraced Gorbachev's views on openness, freedom, and democracy. Deng was wary of Gorbachev and his policies, and in fact lectured and warned Gorbachev about the dangers of political and social reform. The people should have the freedom to make money, but not the freedom to challenge or even question the policies of the government. Outside the Great Hall of the People, students and their supporters were calling for the resignation of Peng, Deng, Yang, and other right-wing leaders, demanding that they step down from power. What they hoped is that the conservatives would resign, leaving Zhao and the reformers in power. Zhao and Gorbachev had a lot in common and a lot to talk about. Both were advocates of freedom of speech, openness, accountability, and other democratic principles. Zhao had a long history of championing reform and freedom. During the 1987 Party Congress, Zhao Ziyang was finally able to get the principles of dialogue to become official policy, but he made many enemies who distrusted the concept of openness and who did not trust Zhao or the Chinese people. It was during Zhao's meeting with Gorbachev that Zhao admitted that Deng was in fact in charge of the country and had the final say over all decisions.